Hi, welcome to Start Here, the interviews. Today, my guest is Mason Bortz from BIT Inc., the security industry Wunderkind, who's been installing security systems since he was 16 years old. Let's see what he has to say. All right. Hi, Mason. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thanks so much for being my guest. I know it's taken us a while to coordinate a chance to actually sit down and chat with each other, but I want to introduce you first and foremost. Mason Bortz from BIT Inc., or is it BIT Inc.? Tell us. I think that's what everybody's wanting to know when they see your name all over LinkedIn.
Yeah. So it's either way you want to pronounce it, I guess, is BIT or BIT, whatever flows off the tongue easier. So it stands for Bortz Innovative Technologies because
there you go.
We do innovative stuff.
Well, you certainly do, at least from what I've seen, and I follow you regularly on the social platforms, particularly LinkedIn, and I've followed some of your excursions out to the latest show, ISC West. So you've been very busy. Tell us a little bit before we talk about today. Introduce yourself properly, because you have a pretty interesting story. You're a really young guy that's you found your way into this industry full of seasoned professionals. So I'm interested in what has attracted you to the physical security industry, and sort of what has propelled you to even sort of build your own company and create your own story. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So the way I got into access control was by force, not by choice. Okay. So I was given a task of, we have a gate at this company we do work for. They said, hey, we have a gate. We'd like to put an intercom at it, and we'd like to also have key card scan badges. Can you make that happen? And I was like, yeah, of course I can do that. Not a problem. I had no idea how I was going to do that. And so left the meeting and then went to, had a ISC West was coming up. So I went out there, and it was like my first year out there, and I had no idea what I was doing or seeing. And so we ended up using kind of our first install was actually with Paxton. And so we ended up installing Paxton, and it worked fine, and it did its job, but it kind of got me curious because the industry seemed so, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, it seemed like, on the outside looking in. So in the IT realm, which is kind of where my background is, it's where I come from, is everything's IP based. So if you can make it IP based, then that is good. And if it is serial cables, or if it's anything other than a cat cable, it's outdated and it's old, which obviously is not true. So kind of started to dive more and more into it. And then I found Brevo, and I found Linnell, and all these other names that everyone else knows very well, but they were new to me.
So how many years ago are we talking here? When was your first ISC West?
That was 2 years ago.
A couple of years ago. And when you say we, is it the same company? Is it BIT Inc.?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a family business?
Yeah. No, it's solely owned by myself. So.
Oh, so you started this company in response to a project you were working on with, because you said we before.
Oh, sorry. So I started this company about, technically BIT Inc. has existed for 2.5 years. Okay. But there was an LLC before that existed for about 3 years. So I had to reincorporate because of a bunch of other things that don't really matter. But yeah.
Well, but so you were in search of, an access control solution, but what were you doing before? What were you doing in IT? Where were you working? What's your background? How did you get educated in this? Or was
my background is my father worked for a university, and so he was the network administrator there. He started out as just a service tech, and then he managed all his way up to the domain admin and network admin. And so as I was growing up, I was just around these things. And so I got really familiar with terms and terminology, and, what a SAN is versus a NAS, and Active Directory and group policy, and, trunks and VLANs. And so I felt like I knew what these terms kind of were. Like, around 11, 12 years old, and then just kind of kept developing that and learning more and becoming interested about it. And so I started this business when I was around 16 based on the the assumption that I didn't want to work fast food, because that was like my first job. Was I would I needed a job. My mom was like, you need to go do something. You need
Sure.
to make some money. So I went and got a job, and I realized, okay, I'm making $115 was my paycheck. I barely worked any, but it was like, this is crazy. I could go rebuild a machine, wipe it, put Windows back on it, and charge 125 and do that in an hour and a half. Like, why am I working all these hours and doing something that I don't enjoy? So that's where I started this little business, and I thought, okay, well, I could do that. So I would rebuild computers in the neighborhood. And then I ended up putting a security camera system in for a family member. I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, oh, I could make this into a business. So after school, I would take my bike and I'd ride it around. I would give out business cards and give out little pamphlets.
So this is
And
Mason at 16,
yeah,
putting this
16. Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
installing security systems and, cleaning.
And I wouldn't do anything crazy. Like it would be me and some friends, and we would go and install a security camera system. And I would do maybe one every month to month and a half. Like, it was something that I thought, I'm just going to keep it in the back pocket,
Sure.
and I'll graduate high school. And then I started going to college, and I was in college, and I just really was not a fan. And I remember my business was picking up a little bit more steam. I was maybe doing one job, a decent sized job or service work every month, or maybe I was doing a couple times a month. And so I was sitting in class, and it was this whole comprehensive thinking, like thinking big for life. And so I said, well, I, I want to do this thing in my life eventually. If like everything works out, I'd like to just own my own business and do that. And I already have it, and I'm trying to work on it. And so that turned into, well, why don't you just go do that? Why are you in school? Because school seems to build you around preparing you for your employer. And
Right.
so it kind of felt odd, because that wasn't my dream. So why am I working so hard to impress my employer when I just want to employ myself? So
And
I
I
ended up
did.
dropping out of school, and I went and worked at Dish Network for 2 years. And that really taught me the reason why I did that, because I got an offer to actually be a project manager at a local IT company, but I turned that down because I wanted to see how a big company operated. So how does a Fortune 200 company operate? What are the policies in place? So that way I could see, okay, this is where I could theoretically shoot for and have a good understanding. Because if you go work for a little mom and pop shop, they haven't gone through all the growing pains that a company that's multi-billion dollars has gone
Right.
through. So I wanted to see what corporate America was kind of about. And I ended up hating it, of course. So then I ended up getting fired from Dish, and I was like, all right, I guess it's time to go full time.
What
So
happened?
I didn't meet my sales metrics.
Okay.
So I was
Okay.
too focused on my business. And when you're passionate about something, you want to do the right thing. Or when you're passionate about technology, as I am, I want to install the correct thing for the customer. And when I was doing these appointments where I would install someone's satellite, I didn't want to sell them a remote skin for $20, or an outdated sound bar. I I didn't care, because that wasn't the right thing to do for that. It's not this one thing fits for everyone, which is how that company worked. Um, so yeah, I ended up not working there. Then I just kind of kept doing security cameras, and we would do some network cabling. And as these opportunities came up where someone would go, hey, we want, for this instance, our gate to open and close, I would try to figure out that problem, and then keep studying it and keep trying to be, or keep looking at, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve? Because I never feel like we're ever doing everything correctly. It's that 95-5 rule, where you do 95% of it right, but that other 5% is what makes people good to great. And that other 5% is what I always feel like we're chasing after, which is a good problem, because I think most good businesses are always should be chasing that other 5% that they're not hitting. They should never be content with the 95%. So,
well, do you find it, being in the physical security industry now? I mean, you have an IT background. Clearly, you're hungry, for knowledge and for the next great solution. Is technology in our space moving fast enough for you? I mean, I'm sure you've got your hands in cloud video, and I know you're working with Phoenix and Brevo and cloud access control. Is the technology moving fast enough for you?
well, I think the issue is because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around it, which now that I understand the access control space more, it makes more sense because it is physical security. So it shouldn't just be like, oh, hey, this is how this works and it's super easy. I feel like from my perspective, at least, it is moving fast enough.
What do you mean by smoke and mirrors, though? Give us an example of what you mean.
So, okay, you look at for me coming into the industry, I looked at Paxton and I thought, well, Paxton has it all figured out. It's all good. But their readers were Wiegand readers, but I had no idea what OSDP was. I mean, I recently learned about OSDP, and I think that's a problem. I don't necessarily think it's the technology. I think it's a lack of education of the installers and of the added, value added reseller, so to speak.
Sure.
It's that, okay, well, everyone and their dog that gets an access control goes, okay, I know I need a controller and I know I need a reader and I need cards. And then it starts to break down after that because they go, well, OSDP is this communication protocol, but if I connect with Wiegand, it's very basic and it's going to work. And it's this like almost like I'm scared mentality.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I could go order Prox cards and I know that those Prox cards are going to work. But if I order these more secure credentials, I maybe had to fill out this big form, and I don't want to do that. And
right.
Who in the heck in there is going to try to break into this pizzeria, or who's going to try to do this, that, or the other? And so they end up getting the jobs because they're quoting them hundreds of dollars less than guys like me, I would say, to some extent, but
Sure.
more guys maybe that have been in the industry a long time that understand all these little nuances and what it takes to properly do an install. It was interesting though, because Brian from Phoenix brought up a good point. It's like if you just do the job how you're supposed to do it, you're like doing the best job. But as soon as you are just doing the bare minimum, then you're more average. And the more installs I see, the more I see, okay, if we try to do this what you should do and then go a little bit above it, we're just killing it at that point, basically, which I think is kind of sad. So I think it doesn't come down to, is the industry moving fast enough? I think it comes down to a lack of education and a lack of someone just going, hey, we just need to walk you through how this stuff works. Because I think it's so convoluted right now that people honestly, unless they have this desire to figure it out, they don't want to figure it out. They just want it to work. They just want you to scan your card and the door opens and you walk in the door. And I think that's why we see Prox, we see maglocks, we see door reader controller combos on exterior doors, which is a nightmare. It's yeah, and this is another reason why we don't see door position switches. We don't see latch bolt monitoring. It's just because, well, those things are extra, and we don't want to do extra. We want to do the bare minimum. So,
are you bidding on a lot of projects? Or are you trying to just secure business yourself through end user?
We haven't found, at least in this market, bidding on something like this is very difficult. It needs to be more of a like working directly with the customer and kind of a teamwork mentality of, okay, how do you forecast your business? How do you see this? Because there's so many things that need to get integrated together. The cameras need to make sure that they work with the access control. But if you're bidding on a project and that company's building another building, well, what camera system do they have? What door system do they have? What credentials do they have? And I think that's why so many people fall back to Prox, is because, well, if we quote it, Prox is probably going to work. But as soon as you start getting all these different credential classes, it can get a little convoluted.
Right. So. Oh, I mean, the credential space just holds, traditionally just holds the end user captive, right? So that's why it's been so difficult to create unified ecosystems across multiple geographical locations. Like you said, with so many disparate systems, usually it comes down to that card being proprietary. It used to be that way with cameras until we saw the ONVIF standard come into place, where you could use, anybody's IP camera on anybody's VMS. We haven't quite got that far with credentials and readers. We're getting there. So it sounds like you are, anti-Prox, trying to get your customers off Prox and into either a high frequency card, or what's your take on mobile? Are you using a lot of mobile credentials yet, or what's?
I think mobile has some room to grow.
Sure.
On the standpoint of, one, with Apple needing to do NFC, BLE is cool, but when you start looking at from fundamentally, if I have a card in my hand and I have a phone in my hand, the card right now, if it's an Apple phone, I might add, seems to work quicker.
Right. Okay.
So I would like to see, but like my Android phone, which I have an Android phone and I come into work every day with that, and that works fine. I think BLE will need, I think BLE is as good as it's going to get as far as the, until we all just unanimously switch over to NFC. But with your guys' approach, you have both of those technologies built in. So, that once Apple finally makes that transition and that all works itself out, I think that will be good. The one thing that I like about Bluetooth is, from a functionality standpoint with Wavelynx, there's no additional cost, or it's very minor additional cost versus a token, a physical credential. So that is nice. But I think that the Bluetooth space has a lot of growth, and there needs to be maybe some more standardization in place.
Sorry, go ahead.
The biggest thing that I see an improvement on to do it to go past the small business environment, the SMB, is to have more management features. So, for example, if someone loses their credential, right, as soon as they lose it, they can call director of security or whoever and say, hey, I lost my credential, I can't get in. And then the director can shut it off. But when they lose their phone, their main priority at that point is finding their phone. They're not going to call down to Ed in security and go, hey, Ed, I lost my phone. Well, one, they don't have a phone, so they're going to have to find someone else. And I'm sure they don't know Ed's phone number off the top of their head. So I think that is something that is really going to be difficult to solve, because yes, the phone is cool and the phone works and you always have your phone on you. But when you don't have your phone on you and it's stolen, how does that get solved? And to go a little bit further, I think that can be solved with multi-factor, where you're scanning your phone, or it's forcing you to unlock the phone, or it's scan the phone and put a PIN code in after hours. I think it can be solved in that manner. But anyways, you were saying.
I think what I was going to ask you was, and thank you for bringing up the Wavelynx mobile. We admittedly it's the first step, right? It's the baby step. It's the free mobile credential with no bells and whistles. It was designed that way on purpose. And yes, it uses Bluetooth in the iPhone and NFC and the Android. And it would be great if we could have both. And hopefully, it will, as we continue to pass the mobile SDK to our OEM partners, who then, create an engineering project around their own mobile application and using ours as a baseline. We're already seeing, I think Phoenix has got their hands on it right now. We should, in the near future, see a Phoenix branded mobile credential that will offer some more features and benefits outside of what our basic, MyPass does. But my question was going to be, how much investigation have you done, if any, in these mobile applications that are really trying to unify all access points into one mobile app? And we see building, usually tenant management and building apps are sort of the outward facing application, but underneath, companies like Zurb, for example, will take all access points in any ecosystem, and they'll be able to create digital clones of those access credentials as they are, without ripping and replacing any hardware. and bring them all together under one unified mobile application. Have you looked into anything like that? Are you working with any applications like that?
So in my area, like physically the town that I am stationed in, we don't have a ton of apartments. It's mainly people own their own homes. So
Okay.
I don't have a ton of experience with that, to be frank with
Multi-tenant.
you. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have a
okay.
ton with it, but it's something that we do have a project that is like it's a back burner project for a good friend of mine. He owns 30 plus multi-tenant buildings, and
Awesome.
this is a project that we have in the works to look at something that can be deployed.
Smart.
We were
Yeah.
obviously looking for Phoenix as the base of it,
Yep.
and then we were looking at Wavelynx was going to potentially be one of the reader
Yep.
technologies. I do
Mm-hmm.
want to back up though.
Sure.
I think your take on how you're building out the Wavelengths mobile platform and saying, "Hey, we have a basic app, and then we're going to give our SDK to Phoenix or Linnell or Brevo or whoever, and they're going to build that out." I think that's the right way to go about it, because then that allows that OEM basically to go, okay, what do our users want? Because a Brevo user or a Brevo customer is might be different than a Phoenix customer on their use cases. I would say the Phoenix system is more of an enterprise first model, whereas the Brevo system, they kind of took a SMB first approach. And so you'll have these different customer segments. And I think it's smart where you could say, hey, we have this free mobile app and it does something simple. And Phoenix is trying to figure it out right now of like what that pricing model looks like on their
Sure.
end. Brian and I have had numerous discussions about it, but I think for them it's nice because they can say, hey, like let's say you own 4 pizza restaurants and you're just like, hey, I just want to have my couple employees who maybe have high turnover. I don't want to give them a card, just have them use their phone. And that allows you to have that free credential that you can give out to people. But then
Yep.
if you're more of a large enterprise, that allows you to scale up to go, okay, we need to have maybe all the check boxes clicked on the sales receipt to say we need to do all of the things that have been developed for. I think that's really smart. And, it's how Wavelengths has positioned themselves in the market against the 900-pound HID gorilla that I
Yep.
think is really smart. And it comes back to the leaf credential and a bunch of other things that we could jump on that I think, again, it just shows I think you guys have the best potential to take over that gorilla, just because of how the architecture's been built out. So
Well, that's you know, that's a big wish and a
yeah.
big amount of hustle. But it comes down to having two very different business models, right? I mean, the 800, 900-pound gorilla, they get bigger. Their whole business model is dependent on the credential sale. And that's why you see a mobile credential coming to market for $6 to $8 or whatever per end user per year without any real enterprise worthy features. It's just building upon an existing business model. Whereas Wavelengths, we're not trying to get in the software game. We're a reader manufacturer. We want to seed the market with our readers. We want the most interoperable, most open-ended, future-proof, if you will, reader that we can sell into the marketplace. And by bringing a free mobile credential, that's just a means to getting our readers out there. So they're just different business models. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it's been really exciting to see what our partners are doing when they take that basic app and then add the features and benefits that they know their customers want. So I know you're giving great feedback to Phoenix. I can't wait to see what they come out with. I think it'll be pretty exciting. And for you guys to then determine, like, when does it become worthwhile? When does the customer say, yeah, that's totally worth me paying $5 or $8 a year per credential or however they decide to charge? I don't know.
Yeah.
But what makes it valuable? How much more does it have to do? So in your estimation, what are important features that you want to see in an integrated mobile solution? Credential opening doors, I mean. So obviously probably automatic enrollment into the software head end. That would be first and foremost, I would guess.
I mean,
what other features?
I would say the automatic enrollment, but I also think it depends on the user. Kind of going back to if what I've talked to Brian a little bit about is if you did have a free or close to free tier to where you just got the basic necessities, but it all kind of compiled into one app. And then you can add those enterprise features on as you see fit. The automatic enrollment obviously is nice for one, but also I haven't thought a lot about it, to be perfectly honest, but tying in location features and tying in what other things are doing. And, I could see it being very powerful just from an enterprise level of, okay, you have to have your phone open to unlock the door. And I guess to back up a little bit there is when you look at HID's implementation of it, is they've said, okay, they created a platform that, in my opinion, isn't great. It's very confusing. And if you go on IPVM, they agree that it's very confusing. So you have this company that said, okay, we're going to build this one platform that everyone has to use. And then we're going to create an API, an API that you can use. And then we're just going to break that API randomly so that all of our OEMs really hate us. But that's a time for that's a story for another day. But we're going to build this and we're going to make it so that, we are the all controlling of it, and there's no two-way communication. So we had an issue where we were sending out credentials and then we had to go fix something, but there was no API call. So there was no way to fix it on the Phoenix side. So you have to fix it within this web page, but then the web page, there's no two-way communication back to Phoenix. And then the whole thing broke, and we just had to wipe out a ton of users and just start fresh and go, okay, we can't do it that way anymore. We literally had to write down a policy to say it's done this way. And if you don't do it this way, it's just going to break. And I in Phoenix, I had a really good talk with one of the support guys there. He's like, what are we supposed to do at that point? Because we can only write what the API says. We can only do so much with the API. If they limit us on the API, we can't do anything. Right. But then, HID holds all the keys here. So whereas with Wavelynx, they're able to basically create that whole ecosystem and that environment, since they have the SDK and they can control a lot more of it. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot more wider adoption. And then I think that will start working its way into getting other people on board by doing, different styles of readers, wireless included. So,
Well, speaking of encryption keys, how important do you think it is for your customers to own their own encryption keys? You and I have spent some time, talking about Leaf and sort of the, heard it from my side, but what are your thoughts on that? Have you had the opportunity yet to?
I haven't, because I haven't seen the need to do it personally. For any of the customers that we've pushed that we've done the Wavelynx on, they've been, whenever we're going to start working with someone new, I won't lie, we've been using HID for a while, but I'm slowly starting to bring Wavelynx into it, just like I think any other company would. And so we start out with some smaller projects, and generally with a smaller project, you're not necessarily worried about that, but I could definitely see the use case in, hey, we're going to push this out to an enterprise level customer, and we want to create a couple of different keys. We want to create one for their wireless handsets, and we want to create one for, maybe all the readers, but then this one segment of readers has a different credential. I mean, I can see that being really powerful, and especially more of a high security application. Whereas you just, and I think with the way that it's been designed, from what I understand on the openness standard of it, it's going to allow for better adoption within the market. So
I think what's really cool, what we're doing with Leaf, initially it has been something that we've had to sort of instill in the project from the very beginning, like decide, are you going to own your keys or are you not going to own your keys? And if you are, then we're going to go down the path of managing your keys for you, creating that unique encryption key set. I think what's really cool, something that Wavelynx has been working on, is to create a really easy upsell and transition path for customers like yours who maybe start out with standard keys. We get them set up with Wavelynx readers, maybe the basic MyPass for mobile. And then as they grow, have a very easy transition path for them to be able to maybe upgrade to custom keys in the field, something that could be very easy for you to do. I think that's something that we've been working on. And maybe we haven't communicated that clearly because it's just sort of been on a per case basis, but we're getting to the point where it's a great opportunity for you to even upsell, when it calls for it.
I think that comes back to, again, where we started in this, is the smoke and mirrors and the lack of education, right? So I think that comes down to, I know they exist because I've gone through it and I've tried to find it. And the other thing that's nice is Brian from Phoenix was pushing that. And he educated me on. He said, "Hey, these things are available. These things exist. It makes sense to apply them in these spots," in his, in the professional opinion of Mr. Brian. So
Brian had quite a few shout outs this podcast. He'll be excited to
yeah. I like Brian. He's a good dude.
Well, it sounds like you're a valuable partner of theirs, and you're able to give them feedback as they continue to engineer their product and bring out new, develop new features and benefits, which is great. It's been exciting to watch them grow. Tell me, I sort of want to wrap things up here. Tell us, what are your thoughts for the future? Like, what are your plans for BIT Inc? Where would you like to see your focus expand? What type of customers are you hoping to work with? Are you looking to move from more small business to enterprise customers? Are you growing your team? Like, what can we expect from your company?
Yeah, so we're always growing the team. If there's someone that seems like they're a good fit, we're always open to hiring more people on. But the thing I'd like to see is just some more enterprise level customers. That's kind of the goal, is to bring more of those people on. We have a handful of them. We're in a smaller town, so it is a much more small business oriented. But coming out and installing products that are enterprise based are, that's where I see the company grow, is to more enterprise and larger commercial industries, basically.
Awesome. So, how are you finding your customers? How are you finding your leads? Are you personally, going to networking events? Is it just all word of mouth?
It is all word of mouth. That is literally the entire business marketing plan, is word of mouth. 100%.
Hey, so you got to do what you got to do in your own territory to service your people. Where exactly are you located?
So we're located in Elkhart, Indiana. It's about 2 hours east of Chicago. It's about 30 minutes away from South Bend, Indiana, if you know where that's at. So
I've seen it on a map. I can't say I've ever been there.
Yeah. You ever heard of Notre Dame? We're 30 minutes from Notre Dame. So
okay.
That's pretty much Chicago and Notre Dame are the two.
It sounds like there's lots of business to be had.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we wrap things up? Or you got any projects that you're excited to talk about coming up? Or
I've just, we started using the readers, the Wavelynx readers more and more, and my guys like them because they're way easier to install. I like them because I don't have to get them. I don't have to try to configure them with an app, and I'm really happy with them, and I'm looking forward to see you guys grow and really develop this into like a full suite of readers and partners.
Well, thank you. And I forgot to actually say thank you for introducing me to Blake at Low Voltage Nation.
Yeah.
Tell me, just before we close, please do a shout out for Low Voltage Nation as well, because they've got to keep building their membership. So you introduced me to Blake Ermos, who's running this project called Low Voltage Nation. Tell me a little bit about your experience with them.
So I kind of hopped on with Blake when he was first starting it. I think I'm technically like one of the founding members of it on LinkedIn or something. But it's a cool community. It's a bunch of like-minded individuals that are trying to get better at what they do. And that's how I found Phoenix, and that's how I found Wavelynx. I mean, that most of my new things that I do tie back to that community. So
how do you communicate? So for people who are listening, Low Voltage Nation, it's a membership community. Tell us, who should sign up to be a partner like you, and where's the message board and things like that, because it's pretty cool.
So you can start just by getting on the Facebook group and talking. I will say the Facebook group is kind of not, it's the free tier, so to speak. So it's like you get what you pay for type of a deal. Okay. You can jump in, you can ask some questions, but it's as good as Facebook is ever going to get. So you can always go to join LVN. If you Google that, it'll pop up Low Voltage Nation, and then you can sign up on the website. Right. and you get introduced on the Slack channel. We're slowly moving over to a new platform that is online, and it's a really cool platform, but it's not quite out of beta, so to speak. So right now it's on Slack. You join up, and it's a monthly that you pay for, but it's a really great community. There's a lot of people on there that you just wouldn't really get introduced to unless you're on there. And again, that's how I found, I would say probably the last 10 companies that we've started working with are all from there. And it's made a massive improvement to my business because I don't really feel like I have to go to a trade show now to find these new things. I can just ask, the old VP Mercury engineer, head of engineering at Mercury, just, hey, John, what do you recommend for this application? And he'll text me back at 11 o'clock and I say, hey, you should go do this. And you don't really get that anywhere else.
No, it's a pretty incredible forum. I was introduced to it, obviously, when I met Blake, and he had me sit in the hot seat for 90 minutes and do a presentation on Wavelynx, which was incredible. I got incredible leads just from doing that. And then being on the Slack channel with everybody and looking at the types of questions and the types of projects that you guys are working on, and, piping in where I can and offering, tools when I can. It's been a really great venue to meet and to understand what's important to you as an integrator and installer, because as manufacturers, we're so many steps removed from what's going when that reader actually gets installed on the wall, so it's nice to kind of keep your fingers in and see what's going. So thank you for that. We'll have to get Blake on here as well at some point and let him do a shout out. Well, congratulations on making your 16-year-old, LLC business into a real grown-up business, and for all of the successes that you're experiencing. And thank you so much for your positive support and evaluation of our products. You've really helped us grow. You've given our engineering team a wealth of insight and feedback, and you've really helped us start to create what will be our next generation product. So I'll be excited to get your hands on that when the time comes. So thank you. We'll be in touch, and hopefully, you'll have more projects to share with me in the future, and you'll come back and be my guest again.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Mason. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.